You might have heard people say things like they want to have FU money. And I think we all know what FU stands for, but I put a little bit of a spin on that to really broaden and expand around what I believe is the true framework to becoming financially untouchable. Let's get into it. Now, most times when people use the term FU money, they're referring to if you have a certain amount of money invested, a certain amount of money liquid, right, then you essentially have FU money. The first financially untouchable thing that we need to make sure that we solve for is if you lose your primary source of income, right? So if you're on your journey towards building towards your financial freedom number and trying to hit that target, you might have great income, right? You might have a great job or a great business or a great career, but what happens if something happens in your respective industry, right? What happens if something happens to that respective job? That could impact and derail everything, right? So understanding what your primary source of income is and what your solution is if you were to lose that primary source of income or if it was to get disrupted is one of the most important things in your financially untouchable framework. You want to start poking holes in your plan, right, proactively so that when and if these things happen, you already have a solution in place. Right. So if I lose my primary source of income, I know exactly what I would do, or more ideally, I already have a secondary stream of income already lined up or that's already happening so that if I lose my primary source, the whole plan doesn't get derailed. Right. So ask yourself, when I look at my finances, is there an alternative stream of income that can still cover my lifestyle, still help me hit the financial goals that I want to hit if I were to lose my primary source of income? If not, do I have a lever that I can pull very quickly if I were to lose my primary source of income, right? Because obviously, even if you don't have it stood up in that moment, you should have an emergency fund. You should have a pool of resources that can bridge the gap, but it might not be enough money to last forever. Right? So what would be that lever that I would pull, or what is the dollar amount in the income generated from my current secondary income stream? And how do I continue to beef that up so that if something happens to my primary income stream, I'm A-okay? One of the most important things you can do is when the money's flowing and everything's going good, or as my business partner, Kenny Conwell likes to say, when you're doing well financially, do well financially, right? Meaning when the money is good, be good to the money. So if you're making an extreme excess above and beyond what you need to make your lifestyle work, tuck that money away. Go ahead and start investing in that season, because everything in life has ebbs and flows. Nothing is going to always go up and to the right perfectly, right? You can look at any stock chart to tell you that. You can look at your life. How many weeks, how many days have gone 100% according to plan? I said I was going to wake up at this time. I was going to do this thing at this time. Almost nothing, almost never. You might have some days that go really well, but more realistically, there are plenty of situations where things don't go according to plan. So we need to put ourselves in a position to account for that so that when they don't go according to plan, we're still in good shape. So another thing that you must address in your financially untouchable plan is understanding the impacts of inflation on your goals. Right? So most times when people are thinking about their financial freedom number, they're thinking like, okay, cool. If I have this amount of money invested based upon my expenses today, I should be in pretty good shape. But what happens if inflation grows at a rate much higher than you anticipated? That money that you had earmarked for your financial freedom goal or your target might not be enough. So you have to factor in the fact that you don't control inflation. Yes, we can look at historical data and see that on average, inflation rises by this percentage. But what we can control is how much money we put away and tuck aside, right? So that if we do get to a point where inflation is higher than we expected, we're still in a good position because we overfunded the goal. I would much rather have you say, George, you had me put away so much money for retirement that I don't even need all of this money, than for you to say, hey, I'm at retirement, but I can't retire because I don't have enough. So we got to factor in, what are these things that could impact my ability to still hit that goal, right? And if inflation being 2% higher than you are planning for or you expect, then what you can do is you can say, okay, well, how much would I need to contribute so that if inflation ever did get to that level, I would still be okay. As a matter of fact, we have a stress test tool inside of our financial planning software and analysis that we do for our clients that literally shows us exactly all the different things that could happen and how we can overcome those things proactively. And inflation is one of the biggest ones that people forget about, one of the biggest ones that people miss when factoring in how much money they need to have invested to be financially untouchable. All right, another one is rising interest rates. So maybe you were basing your decisions off of the fact that if I bought this house and it was at a 2% interest rate, I could afford this much home. But what happens when interest rates go to 4% or 5% or 7% and they skyrocket like we saw over the past couple of years? Now, of course, we're at a place where rates are beginning to trend downwards again, but they're not going to be where they were in 2021 and 2022 for quite some time, if ever again, right? So imagine a world where you were basing your numbers off of a 2.5%, 3.2% interest rate, and then now interest rates are 6, 7%. So I'm gonna buy a house in 4 years at 3%, and I'm gonna be good based upon what type of house I can afford. And then rates double, right? More than double. You're like, oh wait, that doesn't work. So you got to ask yourself, all right, how much can rates adjust for me to still be able to hit my desired outcome? And it also factors in if you have some type of variable debt. Right? Some type of variable debt. That's where a lot of companies end up having to lay off employees because they had maybe a line of credit or some type of variable lending product. And as a result, when interest rates rose, those rates increased, the cost to service that debt rose. And as a result, they had to figure out where they could cut, and employees were at the top of the chopping block, right? So sometimes certain things don't work in all environments, and you have to go into your building your plan, understanding that, and maybe being conservative on your expectations or what you want so that you can create margin to account for things not going according to plan. It's no different than living below your means, right? You got to live below this line of, okay, well, what would happen in this scenario, and how do I put myself in a position to either one, overfund and outpace any potential risk or outcome, or two, live much more substantially below my means so that when it happens, I'm still in a good place with the resources that I have. All right, the next one is unexpected or premature death, right? Everybody has, well, most people, at least that I encounter and serve, have aspirations of preserving wealth and leaving some behind for the next generation or people in causes that they care about. Now, part of that plan is probably based on the fact that you believe you're going to be around for the foreseeable future, and you'll be able to stack up money and pass that money on to whoever you want to pass it on to. But although it's not fun and exciting to talk about, if you were to pass away prematurely, then that is going to disrupt that ability to leave that money behind, right? So what are we doing to address that? Do we have the right type and the right amount of life insurance to ensure that even if there's a disruption in my ability to contribute from my own earned income, I still have a vehicle in place that can produce the cash flow required to still leave the money I want to leave behind for the ones I love? All right, the next big thing to consider when thinking about being financially untouchable is tax planning. There's two really big expenses in your life. Number one, the cost of not knowing. Number two is taxes. And this kind of plays into both. So if you don't understand how tax laws work, if you don't understand how tax laws could or are evolving, that could dramatically disrupt your outcome, right? If you had this plan of like growing your portfolio and then one of the administrations enacts a tax on unrealized gains, that could dramatically impact your plan, right? Or if there are other tax codes that change that you were assuming, right, were not going to impact your ability to save, invest, and build wealth. So you have to understand the tax codes, what's happening in real time. How can I take advantage of the tax code as an incentive system to make sure that it doesn't disrupt my plan?
What's up, family? Are you ready to make more in 2024? I'm talking make more money, pay less taxes, and get access to more capital? If so, I want you to join our 100% free masterclass where we're going to be teaching you all of these strategies so you can keep more money in your pocket and you can make your money make money for you. So if you want to be a part of this amazing free class, all you have to do is click the link below and save your spot. The problem is we only have 50 seats. So I will pause this episode, go register, and come back to it after so that you can save your seat for this masterclass. Other than that, I'll see you inside the class. Let's get back to the episode.
And if the tax code changes, how do I shift my tax strategy to factor in what is actually happening versus what I thought was going to happen? And that's where it really comes in handy having a tax advisor, a CPA, or financial planner who can help navigate you through these ebbs and flows as things change over time. So another thing to consider in your financially untouchable plan is the liquidity of your assets. How quickly can you convert this asset to cash in the event of a need or an emergency? If you have a really big net worth, but all your money is tied up in a business that you're currently running or real estate that maybe is highly illiquid, then that could be a risk, right? You could say you could have a strong net worth on paper, but last time I checked, you can't eat the bricks, right? Now, of course, there's things you can do like home equity lines of credit and stuff like that, depending upon the circumstances. But you have to make sure that you have a right balance and mix of assets, some that might be a little less liquid, some that might be a little more liquid, so that you can have the access you need in the event of emergency or opportunity. Sometimes it's not just an emergency. It's like, hey, look, I need to make a move on this play, but if I don't have the cash in my bank account, what can I get access to that can be a cash equivalent or can be liquidated pretty fast to be able to take advantage of that opportunity, or that I can leverage or borrow against, right? So the liquidity of your assets and understanding your liquidity ratio is going to be very, very important, right? As a person trying to be financially untouchable. All right. And this last one is really, really important. These are not all the things that you need to consider. I might do a part two, but these are some of the key ones. And this last one is really, really important. And it's planning for an unexpected disability or illness. Right? Here's the thing. You're actually 3 times more likely to become temporarily disabled than you are to die prematurely. The good news is you'll probably be here for a very long time and live a long, fruitful, healthy life. Realistically, though, there could be a chance at some point in your life where you become temporarily disabled. I know this firsthand because I think when I was 28 years old in 2016, I had to have a spinal fusion surgery where they had to remove a part of my spine, right? Replace it with metal rods and screws. I had to relearn how to walk. There's a tumor that fractured my spine. So at 28 years old, I was temporarily disabled, right? And fortunate enough for me, I do not look like what I went through. And true to the statistics, it was a temporary disability. But what if something like that happens to you, whether it's worse or, less? At the end of the day, that's a disruption to your daily life. What will that mean for your business? What will that mean for your income? Are you still going to get paid for your job? Are you still going to get paid for your business? Can your business even run if you were to get disabled, right? Which is actually a good checklist. I should probably put together a checklist that helps you understand all the things that I need to consider to make sure that I am financially untouchable. So let me know in the comments if that checklist would be helpful. And I'll put together a checklist for you guys so you guys can know what are all these boxes that I need to check in order to be financially untouchable. In the meantime, you could take our wealth health assessment. That's going to give you an idea of where you are in your journey right at this point, and then anything you can do to improve it. Or you can join us for our 5-day virtual training where we typically give out some of our best and brightest strategies around wealth building, tax savings, and personal finance so that you can take that information and then implement it. Either way, we got plenty of ways for us to help you. But I want to make sure that you can become financially untouchable so that there's nothing that can disrupt your plan towards building wealth. Like I always tell people, in the world full of people being canceled left and right. And again, if you're not doing right on some level, maybe you should be canceled, right? But what I always like to say is they might be able to cancel you, but they can't cancel that cash flow. That's why you got to have your money working for you instead of you working for it. All right. Hopefully that was helpful, guys. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Financial Freedom Fastlane. And remember, the quicker you get to your dream life, the longer you get to live it. Freedom is for sale if you're willing to pay the price.